And Brenda, I would just want to note that in the consent agenda, we did mistakenly include the annual meeting twice. So the minutes from the regular meeting in June will be included in next month's packet.
Right. I have another thing on the consent agenda I'll address once we get to that. All right, hearing no other changes to the agenda, we will move to see if there is any public comment. Do we have members of the public on the phone that would like to speak?
Brenda, the only number I'm not familiar with ends in 0033. So if that is a member of the public and you would like to address an item that is not on the agenda, please feel free to unmute yourself.
Is it easy to know how to do that?
I can ask them to unmute. And we do have instructions for how to unmute on our agenda.
Okay.
We have that handy.
All right.
So.
All right, hearing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. As mentioned a moment ago, the draft minutes 3.1, that's just a draft of the annual minutes and not of the full board minutes. So those minutes will be included in the packet for next month. One item I want to pull out is 3.4, the SWIP facility inclusion, and we can cover that after the executive session as well, given that we have various presenters this evening. So any other changes to the consent agenda? Anything that folks would like to remove? Okay, hearing none, we shall adopt the consent agenda as presented. And at this point, have a resolution for recognizing Lynn Gardner and Michelle DaVia for their terms of service on the board. And first up, I will recognize Lynn Gardner. Whereas Lynn Gardner has served on the Board of Commissioners for Chittenden Solid Waste District in an outstanding manner from 1992 to 2020. Whereas he has been a dedicated and conscientious public servant working continually for the betterment of the town of Heinsberg and the general community of Chittenden County as a representative to the Chittenden Solid Waste District. Whereas he has volunteered many hours of his own time and expertise working on the Chittenden Solid Waste District Board. Whereas he has continually exhibited wisdom, fairness, and commitment to the purpose and mission of the Chittenden Solid Waste District. Therefore, be it resolved that the Chittenden Solid Waste District Board of Commissioners, on behalf of the residents and businesses of all 18 communities in Chittenden County, hereby convey their sincere appreciation for his hardship and outstanding service. Be it adopted this 26th day of August, 2020 by the Chittenden Solid Waste Board of Commissioners. That is an impressive length of service, and we certainly are grateful for
that, Bryn.
for the amount. I was going to read Michelle's as well and
Okay.
move to adopt them at the same time. Thank you. And for Michelle DaVia's recognition of her terms of service, whereas Michelle DaVia has served on the Board of Commissioners for the Chittenden Solid Waste District in an outstanding manner from 2009 to 2020, whereas she has a dedicated and conscientious public servant working continually for the betterment of the town of Westford and the general community of Chittenden County as a representative to the Chittenden Solid Waste District. Whereas she volunteered many hours of her own time and expertise working on the Chittenden Solid Waste District Board, the Executive Board, the Financial Committee, and various other committees, and has served as the chair of the board. Whereas she has continually exhibited wisdom, fairness, and commitment to the purpose and mission of Chittenden Solid Waste District. Therefore, be it resolved that the Chittenden Solid Waste District Board of Commissioners, on behalf of the residents and businesses of all 18 communities in Chittenden County, hereby convey their sincere appreciation for her leadership and outstanding service. Be it adopted this 26th day of August 2020 by the Chittenden Solid Waste Board of Commissioners. If I may entertain a motion to adopt the recognition for Lynn Gardner and Michelle DaVia.
So moved.
Seconded. This is South Burlington.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right. I believe we can now move on to the next agenda item. If you would like to take the lead, Sarah.
Sure, thank you. So we have some invited guests from Vanguard Renewables who gave a presentation to the executive board last week and will give a similar presentation tonight to the full board. And it is to talk about what they're doing in Salisbury with their digester, kind of where they're at briefly, and then to talk about their depackaging system that is nearly completed in, actually I believe it is completed at this point in Agawam, Mass. And they would be interested and are interested in working with the district on a similar operation here in Chittenden County. So I thought that I would turn it over to John Hanselman. John is the CEO for Vanguard Renewables, and he does have a PowerPoint. Let me see if I can. Let's see if I can share.
I can also share it here if that helps.
If you're able to share it, then please do.
You're challenging my technical capabilities, but maybe I can.
I'm not sure if I've given you permission to share. That's the issue. So.
It says that I'm disabled, so.
I will pull up the PowerPoint.
Appreciate that. Great. Well, again, thank you everyone for letting us come and present this evening to all the commissioners and to the public. We are really, really delighted to be in front of you. We're also really excited about being back in Vermont. We think that Act 148 has shown an incredibly important light on the potential of food waste. And we think that with Act 148, Vermont has actually stepped to the forefront and has the ability to show the entire United States how to process organic waste correctly. And I think one of the things that we feel strongly about, and we'll go through in the details in the slides here, but the processing of food waste can take it from a very, very aggressive producer of greenhouse gas all the way to the beneficial impact of creating renewable natural gas. That for us is the whole essence of our business and what we've committed to 7 years ago when we started the company, and something that I think is fundamental to what's happening in Vermont. And doing it correctly, doing it in a way so that it doesn't impact the community negatively, doing it in a way that protects the watershed and may actually improve the watershed for Lake Champlain. Those are all things that I think are really specific and fundamental to our business model, and something that we think is a shared value with CSWD. And we really look forward to working together to try and bring this to reality. I think, as everyone has probably heard, either in our presentation before, but in all the discussion of food waste is a remarkable resource or a really damaging polluter. What we've found out about food waste over the last 7 years of processing it in Massachusetts is that it's pretty tricky. It is not the easiest thing in the world to recycle, and doing it the right way takes lots and lots of trial and error, some expensive missteps, but I think we've kind of cracked the code as to how to get it from all its different forms that you see in front of you on this slide into a digester. The most important thing to recognize is that the 3 columns on the left is where we started with food waste, the easy, simple, clean materials. Unfortunately, that only represents normally 15 to 20% of what is in any waste stream. The majority of food waste comes on the right-hand side, those 3 columns, the packaged waste and discarded foods. Those are all the things that require handling and processing. And Sarah, maybe we jump to the next slide. To do that is a very intricate and challenging process. So getting it out of the packaging, extracting the organic component from the solids and from the contaminants, and doing it in a way that we minimize all of the microplastics and things that go through this system and out to the farm is hugely important. And so we've spent literally years looking at different depackaging solutions. We've traveled all over Europe and Canada to find a system. We've settled on the Scott system that you see in front of you. We've installed that is actually our system down in Agawam, Massachusetts. It is a very powerful, very clean system. And I think the thing that is most critical to us is it's actually a pressure-based system rather than a smashing-based system. So the solids that come out and the organics that come out are quite clean and something that we can control a lot better than any of the other systems that we've seen that are in the marketplace. Sarah, we can probably jump to the next slide. The key components, and I mentioned just a minute before, but it's really critical to what we do. Getting all of that organic waste separated from packaging materials, from plastic bags, from contaminants is absolutely, I think, the most important way to access more of that organic waste stream. Getting it to a farm where it can actually be turned into renewable energy and low carbon fertilizer is what we've designed our entire business. We've got the Salisbury digester that's actually just starting to, we'll fill it in September with manure and then start food waste immediately after that. That is the most important thing we think that we can do for the environment and for the people of Vermont. As part of that, I think we want to make sure that we can get all of that and take that resource that is the organic material. And once we've extracted the natural gas from it, then being able to have low carbon regenerative fertilizer for the farm is absolutely fundamental to what we do. And we're delighted to have our farmers stepping off synthetic fertilizer and moving to our low carbon fertilizer. In addition to that, a new step for us and something that we committed to when we came to Vermont is we're actually able to then actually look at the digestate, that low carbon fertilizer that comes from the process, and remove phosphorus. So we will actually significantly decrease the amount of phosphorus that the farm utilizes on its fields. They're increasing or reducing their impact on the watershed and really creating a model that we think is important for all of Vermont and really for all of the United States. And being able to move away from synthetic fertilizers and being able to really look at how you can reduce the impact, put good nutrients back into the soil and not the things that wash through and end up in our streams and lakes. Specifically on the ORF, on the organic recycling facility, that is the ORF. What we don't want to do is build a recycling system in Vermont that fails, or something that has such negative impacts on the community that they look at it as a real hindrance and would reject Act 148 and really have a problem complying with the law. To that end, first and foremost, the biggest complaint everyone has is odor. So we spend an enormous amount of time and energy first designing and then executing and running odor control units at all of our systems, whether it's the digesters or the depackaging and organic recycling facilities. We have massive and redundant odor control systems that allow us to really have zero impact on the odor footprint and signature in the community. In addition to that, building an enclosure that allows you to keep out animals, pests, things that could really also create a very negative impact and perception of food waste recycling, fundamental to what we do, and something that we'll show you as we kind of step through the slides, how we've designed around that. In addition to that, what we know from experience is that food waste recycling is a consistent process of education and adoption. And so as more and more folks, building a system that handles the current volume in any marketplace as you start out on a program like Act 148, it will become undersized rather rapidly, we hope. And as we've seen in Massachusetts, we started our law went into effect in 2014, and the adoption curve has been dramatic. So we take probably 3 times as much waste 5 years later than we did when we started in Massachusetts, maybe even 4 times now. And that's all through educating the community as to the accessibility of food waste and the opportunity, and more adoption happens. So we want to make sure that we have a system that is big enough, not just to handle today's needs, but all of the needs downstream. In addition to that, storage is critically important. Food waste is not linear. It comes in all different forms and all different times, and you need to be able to handle the waves of food waste as they come. Quite often we get calls with 5 truckloads of romaine lettuce that needs to be knocked out of its packaging and recycled. Those 5 truckloads inevitably come all on the same day that we get 5 truckloads of ice cream. So if you don't have on-site storage, both for the materials and as well as the post-processed liquids, you can have a really significant problem. And going back to the vector problem, back to the odor problem, there are some pretty horrific stories, which I won't do before dinner, of folks who've had overflows on their sites. That is not something that we would ever want to replicate. And the final part is really being able to tour people through the systems. We've been to depackaging facilities both in the United States and Canada, as well as in Europe, where you could not take people to it. It would be a very, very negative impact. What we want to do is build a system where school kids, college students, anyone can come to the site, see what we're doing, be excited about what's happening, and not be repulsed and run screaming from the building. So we've designed a system that is unique. It's very different than any system that we're aware of in the United States. We've actually replicated a model and actually used a design team out of the UK to help us build this. And it's something that will allow itself to be part of the community and allow folks to really participate in the process of food waste recycling. Certainly there's some days we wouldn't want folks in there regardless of what it is showing up, but we're really proud of what we've built in Agawam, and it's something that we'd love to replicate in South Williston. So next slide. Oh, I think going the other way. A little bit about us. So we were formed in 2013. Our single purpose was to do farm-based anaerobic digestion. We started out being funded by a series of family offices who have been our single point of investors from the beginning. Been fantastic relationship and continue to drive us towards growth. We did last year enter into a $200 million joint venture with Dominion Energy to pursue manure-only digesters. Those are predominantly from larger farms in the West and Midwest. Our food waste digesters are now predominantly in the East Coast. We're moving now down into New York and Pennsylvania and Georgia. In all those systems, we're working with smaller dairymen. So we prefer smaller farms where we can really help them with their sustainability, both financial sustainability, environmental sustainability, and being able to drive real positive growth and survival, candidly, these days for our dairy partners. We are a strategic alliance partner with the Dairy Farmers of America. So I think that was signed in 2016. And we work with them on all of their 14,000 family farms as they're asking to understand more about anaerobic digestion, and it's been a wonderful relationship. I think probably jump to the next slide. For those of you who haven't seen an anaerobic digester or haven't seen kind of what we think is the next generation of anaerobic digesters, this is our digester in Deerfield, Mass, right on the Vermont line. This system is our standard platform. It's also the same system that we're using in Salisbury. It is a very technical anaerobic digester. So no odor, no nasty byproducts. We're very, very proud of the way it's been engineered. Again, it is a Austrian digester that was then brought to the United States. The design was, to Canada, and we brought it to the United States as our platform technology. It takes cow manure. We take 100% of the manure from the Goodrich farm in Salisbury. We then take up to 180 tons of food waste there at the farm. We combine that, cook it for about 30 days. So raise the temperature up to around 104 degrees, drop the pH, and then the colonies of methanogens. And we use the resident methanogens that come from the gut flora of the cows. So we use no genetically modified methanogens. They eat all of the food waste and emit the methane. We collect that methane, we purify it, and then we inject it into the local pipeline that Vermont Gas Services has there. In Salisbury, half of the gas that we're producing goes directly to Middlebury College. Middlebury signed a long-term agreement with us for a 20-year offtake where they will replace 100% of their natural gas usage with renewable natural gas, which is a wonderful move by the folks at Millbury, and something that we greatly appreciate their setting. And if you talk about setting an example for the United States, that's another one where that ripple has already been seen, and we have just actually signed with another university in New York State that is trying to replicate the same model that we've created here. So it's something, we've started a real revolution here in Vermont, and something that we'd like to see throughout the country. When we process that food waste, we end up with the renewable natural gas that we inject into the pipeline there. And we also end up with a lot of waste heat that we actually give to the farm for free for them to heat the buildings, and or in the case of 2 of our farms in Massachusetts, they're actually building greenhouses for additional income and crop stability. So we're very excited about that. We give them the heat, and they have no energy cost in those greenhouses. In addition to that, we get the digestate, the liquid, post-processed liquid is a wonderful fertilizer. In our 5 farms in Massachusetts, we've replaced all of the synthetic fertilizer use, and in doing actually increased, and we have 2 USDA trials where we increased the output on the farm on the hay and corn by 20%, and the nutritional value of that corn by an additional 25%, I think is our latest numbers. So really exciting, low carbon, great organic fertilizer, and all of that is given to our farm partners. We also extract the solids from the liquids and use that as bedding material, give that to the farm for free as well. So it's a wonderful beneficial impact to our farm partners. And we take all of their manure and the food waste and remove that phosphorus. So the overall impact, it's a more sustainable farm economically and a significantly more sustainable farm environmentally. I think next slide, probably, Sarah. This is a map of our current systems. So we have 5 operating systems in Massachusetts. Our 6, the little dumpster there is our Depackaging, our ORF, our organic recycling facility in Agawam, Mass, that Sarah said is just going online now. The Goodrich Farm just south of Middlebury and Salisbury. We are just finished permitting our Kinderhook, New York system, and we are just starting permitting the Amenia, New York system. So really exciting times, and we're delighted to be able to now create a portfolio approach where we have redundancy. So the one thing that we do know about digesters is they go up and down. If any of you have seen the digesters, the VTC digester, or any of the ones that are on from the cow power era, everyone knows they're tricky little beasts. They're quite dynamic, and building multiple systems allows us to know that we have 100% reliability and offtake. So any variability, we've built in a 20% overhead on all of our farms so that we can move recipe and move deliveries around. We run all of our own logistics. So all food waste that comes into our systems is logged, tracked, and actually dispatched by our team at our headquarters in Wellesley. So we've been very aggressive in terms of being able to control that and know that we can deal with all of the complexities of managing anaerobic digesters. Next slide. So our Agawam system, just to talk through kind of what it is, it's about a 13,000 square foot building that's optimized for those vectors, odor and pests, to make sure that there's no issue in the community. We've built what we think is some of the most successful separators there. The Scott Turbo, I think it's actually, we have the Mega Thor, which just sounds remarkable. It is a hammer mill system that literally squishes the organic materials through a series of screens, that big red machine that was up there in the earlier picture. We can handle wet, dry, frozen product, anything that goes through there. We can change out screens to handle cans, plastics. The only thing that we cannot handle is glass. And unfortunately, glass, we've never found a way to separate the glass particles out of the liquid stream. And so it's impossible for us to send that to the farm. It's just too damaging potentially for the animals and for the land. So the only thing that we really can't take, can't take bleach, can't take glass. Those things are all pretty nasty for our system. Again, we'll go through the drawings. It's probably better to maybe jump down into the drawings. The only thing I would note is, again, that odor control system. We have just installed, I think we're over now 15 tons of activated carbon, which is fairly remarkable to see delivered. I mean, these big, huge super sacks. That is a very aggressive air handler. Allows us to do 6 air changes per hour inside the system. We've also done hood and vent locations and dropping a ceiling so that we are as close to the odor emitters as possible at all times, and being able to really pull that odor out of the building continuously. So if we want to go, this is the site layout. So that square in the center is number 1, that is the building. So you have an entryway. It's about a 5-acre site. You pull in, drive through this scale, which is that hash mark number 4. You then we'll have the trucks back into either the loading dock, which is on the right-hand side, or actually into the building if they're dumping from a trailer or a compactor. So maybe we can jump to the next one. This is a shot of the building, and I apologize, it's rotated to fit on the slide. But if it had been on the slide, it would have been up 45 degrees, 90 degrees. I can never get that right. So what you see on the top there is a truck that has backed into the dock height door. So we can pull containers, pallets, and other things that would come on the back of a trailer and pull those out. Down below at the bottom, you'll see a truck that has backed all the way into our walking floor. The huge difference, one of the many differences between this design and any design that we're aware of is we do not tip organic materials onto the floor of the building. So we tip onto a walking floor. It's a containerized, huge containerized walking floor that actually has metal planks that slowly push the food waste towards a drum, a consolidating drum, and then a series of augers. This allows us 2 incredibly important things. One is the ability to visually inspect everything that's coming through the system so that we don't have any contaminants that we can't handle or that we don't want to handle. The second part is we're not ever contacting the surface of the building with the organics. All of it is going into this contained space, which then has a whole jet and wash system. So we can actually go through and clean. At the end of the day, everything gets washed through. That's critically important to odor control, because no matter what you do, if it hits the floor, it's going to spray and splatter and starts to move around the system. This has huge 10-foot walls on it that contains all of that spray and splatter. And I apologize for all of this before dinner. But very, very important to really be able to control that mass so that we don't have ongoing pest and odor issues. Once it gets into the auger, it goes up into that number 5, which is the Thor machine, where it is separated. The solid materials, the contaminants come out and are put into the dumpster, number 6, and the liquid materials are then pumped into those 4 tanks that are up at the top, those circles. And those circles are a series of 3 15,000-gallon storage tanks plus a 10,000-gallon day tank, where we can actually mix and optimize the blend for each one of the farms to make sure that we get the right material to the farm on any given day. We also have another 8,000-gallon recycling tank where we can actually take beer and other liquids that we recover straight from the materials and use that as our recharge liquid, which minimizes the amount of water that we have to use on site. So it's a great day. We are now the East Coast recipient for all of Hillebrand. We're the largest keg distributor in the United States. We do all of their keg decanting. So as kegs are returned to them partially full, they send them to us. We then flush those out, and we can actually use that beer as a recharge liquid, which is fantastic. We have much lower water demand from the system, and that beer actually has energy value that we can send off to the farms with the solid organic material. Down in the lower right-hand corner, that number 8, that is the odor control system. Hard to get the scale of it from the site, but it is from the site map. But it is an enormous beast, and something that is critically important. Again, all of the organic material is kept within the building at all times. It is only then pumped out to when we back up a tanker out, and that's outside the building. We run a transmission pipe out to it and then fill the tanker, and the tanker then goes down to the farms. So next slide, if you would. This is the front exterior of the building. The important things to note here is the different heights of the ceiling. So we could have built one single height, very tall building. The problem then is that you have much more odor creation, and you've got to turn a lot more air. So what we did is we built the far end of the far right-hand side of the building as full truck height. So we can actually take a 53-foot trailer and bring it to full dump and still have clearance there. And then all of the rest of the doors are backup. All of the doors, as importantly, are high-speed doors. So the open and close sequence is a second, and I'm gonna get that wrong. I think it's like a second and a half to open and close. Very, very fast. Second up, I think it's half second down. Of course, truck's gotta go through. Behind that is an air dam. So just before the door starts to open, the air dam activates, and we have an active blowing system that actually clears the air and keeps whatever odor is inside the building as the truck backs through and in. Again, those things are not standard for, not always standard for the US, but something that we think fundamental to being a good neighbor. Next slide. This is the Megathor from our system. Again, I won't belabor it. It's a 30 ton per hour, so it has a lot of growth capacity. It can handle virtually any contaminant other than glass, as we talked about. Really well designed. We've really enjoyed working with the Scott team, and the system is extremely well engineered. It is a US system, which is something that was critical to us. There are Italian and other systems, Dutch and Danish systems that are out there, also very good. There's also the German Wackerbauer, also a very good system, but maintaining those systems and getting parts and service, I think have proved to be a little challenging for other folks who use those. So we're quite tickled to be able to have a US-based system. The cost of that, just bare bones with nothing else, is $332,000. So it is not cheap. And then once you put on the mag wheels and T shifter, it starts to really add up. It's about $500,000 once the system is fully installed. I think next slide, maybe. So for us, we're very, very fortunate to have our capital partners and to be committed to building a organic recycling facility in Vermont. And so we have all the capital available to do it. We would love and appreciate the participation of the district if it would like to make a capital commitment as well, but it's not necessary. We're able to take 100% of the capital cost onto our side of the budget. I think I've lost the slides. what if I can do it from memory, I think we're committed to paying ground rent on the property for a 20-year lease with we'd hope some extensions on top of that. We're very, very open to and think that profit sharing is an important part of this, so that we're all mutually incentivized to bring more and more waste through this system. We're also very much aware of the needs of the existing facility to have the 5,000 tons per year that it currently uses to produce its product, and we're committed for that to be the first priority through the system. So CSWD would get, and Green Mountain Compost would get their 5,000 tons first, and before anything comes down to Salisbury, we think that's the most appropriate thing to do. And I'm forgetting the rest of my slide,
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Sarah's having a little bit of technical difficulties, and she's just restarting her computer. So we can certainly revisit the last remaining items on your slides when she signs back on, John. Sorry about that.
Not to worry. I think we're pretty much done at that point.
Okay, all right. At this point, if there are questions that the commissioners would like to ask Vanguard. I know we have another presenter lined up afterwards as well, so certainly feel free to wave your hand or unmute yourselves. Paul, you've got a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I understood. So Agawam is starting up next month, is that correct?
Correct.
But you said there are like 370 of these store machines already installed. Is that correct? Did I understand that correctly?
So there are 170 in the US, and I think another 200 worldwide outside of that.
Okay. All right. And how often do you have to change the carbon filters?
So we've been told every year. What we do on our other systems, I think we cycle through probably a little shorter than that. I think 6 to 8 months. Yeah, it's not insignificant.
Okay.
It's a lot of carbon.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the commissioners at this time? John, I have one quick question. I think you captured it, but I missed. Is the system pasteurizing on site?
We're not pasteurizing.
Okay.
So what we do, and it's a great question, Bryn. So in the UK and the EU, they do pre-pasteurization. What we've seen, and the USDA and all of the folks who have the regulatory review on this, because we have a 30-day retention time at 104 degrees, all the pathogens are killed in the system. And so we've got a very clean, nice product that comes out the back end. And the pasteurization turns out to actually decrease the energy value. So we've never done it. And I'm not aware of anybody in the States who does that.
Okay. Great. Is there anything from your last slide that you wanted to cover, John?
Oh, yay, it's back. No, I think for us, just having an open system that is available to anyone in the district or outside the district who'd like to come and recycle their food waste, that's just a wonderful vision for us.
Great. All right, we got Sarah back.
Sorry about that, guys. My computer decided to just randomly restart. So
No worries. We got you
Apologies.
back.
Just want to make sure you were awake, right? That's the
exactly. Little candy was
right.
always great for the soul.
cool.
Well, thank you so much for your presentation, John. I haven't seen lead. Sorry, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask one question. For the tipping, it's tipping into a pit. The trucks that generally haul there, are those live floor trucks or are they trailer dump trucks?
We get all of the above. So,
Okay, so when they back in, those overhead doors close immediately?
that's correct.
Okay, and then everything is just cycled through those charcoal filters.
That's correct.
Okay. Is there any issues with exhaust from those trucks? I mean, because they have to wind those motors up to get the hydraulics to work.
Yeah, no, we haven't seen it, and the good news is that this exact design has been operational in the city of London, actually, weirdly, and a bunch of other places too. But that's the one that's the most closely resembles the one we're building for, I think, 6 or 7 years, and we're actually turning, I think, a little more aggressive air turns than they are, so have not been a problem.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
I had
Oh, you-
one more question.
Yep. Go ahead.
How in your Agawam facility, how close is your nearest residence?
So we have folks who are about a quarter of a mile on down on one side. Our side of the street is all commercial. So the Hood plant is just our next door neighbor on one side. We have a Dunkin' Donuts right, and a paintball field on the other side. But then I think across the street we've got residential.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, anybody else at the moment? All right, well, thank you, John.
Cool.
We can
Thanks,
move
everyone.
to the next presenter, Sarah.
Yeah, so I think that we had, at least I saw Mike Casella had logged on. Hopefully Mike is still there. And he had wanted to talk to the board about what they have planned for their facility in Williston.
All right, he is on, you're on mute, Mike.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, great.
Oh, perfect. No, I know I reached out to Sarah the other day and just said, would love to kind of get in front of the board just to have a discussion. Obviously don't have all the slides and everything as we kind of got the update last minute as of yesterday, but just we are in the process right now of building our facility. So we have all our permits from the state and from Williston. We are building a facility to handle all of the organics material right now that we have on our trucks, around 11,000 tons that we feel we currently know what we have. We know what products we're taking. We're going to be able to process that. We're going to be partnering with a lot of local farms, and then obviously Purpose Energy, as many of you may know, in South Burlington. They have the Magic Hat digester. That's where most of the product or our byproduct would end up going. So we'd be shipping that material there. It's a Megathor as well. Similar design, but some differences obviously in how you want to operate. I think we're looking at more dumping onto a tip floor so that we then can inspect different loads and really comb through the material to make sure that we have a good quality stream and then process that material. We have about 40,000 gallons of storage capacity on site. Some of the designs have been being moved around on where we're going to place tanks and other things like that. But the facility is actually up and operational. I think we plan on being open early January, early 2021. But love to come back to the board and actually put a full presentation and bring some of our other partners in that we're working with. Got some experience installing these as we worked with like Green Mountain Coffee and some other large manufacturers to actually install them in their plants where they were actually depackaging their product to send coffee scraps to Green Mountain Compost, actually would be one of the big ones.
All right, thank you, Mike. Do the commissioners have questions for Mike? I think we would welcome an opportunity to have you in the near future give a full presentation. So if you want to coordinate with Sarah and her team on making that happen.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Where is it located, Mike?
It's going to be located at Williston at the transfer station. We're pretty much placing it in the container yard. So if you come across our scale and to the left is where the transfer station, in between the web building and our building, where normally we store the roll-off containers, that's the space that we're building this facility.
Thank you.
Yeah, Lee?
Is it going to be an enclosed system like Vanguard's talking about, being in that area, or?
No, we've modeled it very similar to like our transfer station. There is the ability to put a door, but we're having more of an open space so that we can process on that floor and dump on, so to speak, a tip floor. We are going with the Mega Thor, which obviously can produce or can handle 30 tons per hour. And at the current volumes that we have, we're consistently thinking that we'll be operating 2 hours a day with the current material that we have, right? So that leaves a lot of room for operation to keep adding a material if you want to, or improving your process, because we're actually only running at 2 hours out of a 10-hour day normally, which we would operate at.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anybody on the phone have questions? All right, well, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Look forward to have you back for a full presentation and to hear from your partners.
Absolutely.
All right, I believe there's no motion to occur on any of those presentations. So at this point, Alan, if you would like to move to adjourn to executive session.
This is Amy. I do have the wording.
Okay, wonderful.
Read it. I move that the Board of Commissioners of the Chittenden Solid Waste District go into executive session to discuss contract negotiations with respect to the organics diversion facility, where premature general public knowledge would clearly place the district, its member municipalities, and other public bodies or persons involved at a substantial disadvantage, and to permit staff, other invited interested parties, and the solid waste district attorneys to be present for this session.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Lee's got a second there.
Scott Burlington.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
right,
Aye.
anybody object? Anybody abstain? All right, we shall move to executive session.
Okay.
Can I have a motion to end executive session?
So moved, Seth Burlington.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody oppose? Anybody abstain? All right. So following executive session, we do not have any items to vote on at this time. So we are going to move to the next item on the agenda, which I had previously asked to adjust. So Sarah, why don't we go into the SWIP inclusion
Okay,
item
great.
next?
And Josh Esty, are you still? Yep, Josh Esty is there. Okay,
I am.
great.
So I can walk through the memo real quick if you want me to, Bryn. We are just bringing 3 facilities to include in our SWIP. 2 of them are the sort of the easier ones anticipating. One is our organics diversion facility. That facility needs to be re-included in our SWIP for a couple different reasons. One is the change in process, which would be just having the windrow turner and doing it that way versus turning with an excavator and front end loader. And then the other piece that would require re-inclusion was the addition of the Southfield wood area collection, which would be in the future. Obviously, we have no firm intentions of doing that, but that did get included in our permit reapplication. So we just needed to have that as part of the SWIP re-inclusion. So that's the one facility. The second one is an SD Ireland categorical recycling facility for concrete, masonry, dirty stumps, all that kind of good stuff. And that's a site up in Milton, and it is just for SD Ireland projects alone. It's not open to the public. So we caught that on the A&R environmental bulletin and just wanted to bring it here as a matter of form and get that included in our SWIP. And then the third one is the Magic Hat digester, which is in South Burlington. Tim Jones, who's a subcontractor for the facility, reached out a couple months ago and asked for inclusion. This is a digester that, as Josh mentioned earlier, is already taking brewery waste. They have about 100,000 gallon per day maximum throughput on their facility. Currently, they're taking 40,000 gallons per day from the brewery. And I did speak with Tim earlier. They're looking to max out at around 25% of their annual throughput from depacked food sources. And we did hear Mike Casella mention that one of the main sources for that digester will be the Casella Depack facility. The way that I understood it from Tim Jones was that they are also moving forward on a St. Albans digester project. That will be the main outlet for depacked material for the source that they have, which, you know, I have to presume is Casella. But really the South Burlington facility and this change in what material they take in is really as a backup plan to the St. Albans digester for when it's down for preventative maintenance, or if they're having issues with a material that they're running through, any of those downtimes, and is really the not the primary outlet, but rather a secondary backup. That's the way it was described to me, at least in conversations I had with Tim. The state has given their soft okay to that permit. They do need our blessing, our SWIP inclusion, to move forward on granting them their solid waste certification. But for all intents and purposes, the state has given their approval to the project.
So you've reviewed their permit application with the state?
Yeah, with Dennis Feckert,
Yep.
Solid Waste Division. And they, as part of the process, just so everybody is aware, the applicant or their grantee, they have to submit a letter to Sarah asking for inclusion. And as part of that, we review their facility application and their facility management plan, all the documents that are required going into the solid waste certification process. Obviously, for the organics diversion facility, that's pretty straightforward. The SD Ireland project, pretty straightforward. And this one is a little more heavy duty, but given that it's a established digester. It was more or less just a matter of editing their inbound materials more than anything else. They already have their odor controls in place. They already have their material management, locked down. It's just a matter of changing how they take inbound materials. And it's really a slurry mix that they're taking from likely Casella into their already existing tank storage. So the process doesn't change that much. It's really the input, and it's significant because they're going from not needing a solid waste certification because it's never solid waste to becoming that full-blown solid waste certified facility. So that's sort of why it rises to this.
I have another question, but does anybody else want to ask something? Okay, I'm curious. There was recent news that ownership of Magic Hat will be changing. So will that require additional future SWIP inclusion?
It won't, because the way our facility inclusion procedure is laid out now, there's a couple things that have to happen. There's a couple reasons why we'd go through the facility re-inclusion plan, and it basically comes down to their process and the materials accepted, and then the third piece is just given like the total amount of throughput they have in their facility. So if none of those things are changing, then there's really no reason to bring it through again. I did ask Tim about that, and he said they're going through the certification process with the Magic Hat name because they're still ironing out the change of ownership on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
Likely they'll have to do a minor amendment, and I'd have to look at the regulations. It might be a major, or they might have to reapply. I'm not sure you can inherit a solid waste certification. I would have to go back and look at that, but for all intents and purposes, if none of the processes are changing or inbound materials or total tonnages are changing, then I don't think we'd have to go through this process again.
Okay, all right. Any other questions from commissioners? Would anybody like to read the motion? Amy, maybe, if she's still on?
If not, I can read it.
It's a mouthful, sorry.
No, it's good. Sarah, if you would read it, that'd be great.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm on, but my computer rebooted.
It's full moon, I guess, for technology tonight. Go ahead, Sarah.
Actually, hang on, let me grab the, I say yes, I'll do it, and then I have to find it. I'm sorry. I'm scrolling through. No, that's not the right one. I apologize, Brandon. This was item number 3.4,
I think.
Yep. I'm scrolling.
Page 33 of 100, if you're in PDF.
Yeah, the PDF, thank you. 3300. Okay, gotcha. All right. So the resolution reads as follows. The Chittenden Solid Waste District's Board of Commissioners hereby resolves that CSWD's Organics Diversion Facility located on Redmond Road in Williston, Vermont, SD Ireland's Bowden's Categorical Disposal Facility located on Middle Road in Milton, Vermont, and Purpose Energy's Digester Facility at Magic Hat Brewing located on Bartlett Bay Road in South Burlington, Vermont, be included in the district's solid waste implementation plan issued on August 26, 2020.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second, South Burlington.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any objections? Anybody abstain? All right.
Thank
We
you.
move to the next agenda item. I think at this point, why don't we cover item number 8, the forklift request.
That's me, Josh Tyler, Director of Operations. I will try and share my screen here. Now, who's the host? Is that you, Dan, or is that?
Maybe me. Hang on, Josh.
You can delegate Josh as a co-host. He'll be able to share his screen.
I've got it up here, so let's see.
Great. Actually, that's exactly that table's perfect. So this just a little background. The MRF, our materials recycling facility, has 2 forklifts. One is used to move bales out of the baler and into the bale storage area and stack bales in the bale storage area, and one is used to load prep loads and load trucks for outbound materials. We move approximately 3,000 to 3,200 tons of material a month. So these get used pretty frequently. With the installation of our new baler, the bales are denser and heavier, which is great. It's what we're shooting for, but it's pushing the weight limit on these forklifts. So that's a concern. Also, we've got in our contract with Casella kind of an identified usable time frame on pieces of equipment. And the 2 pieces of equipment that we have that we're currently using are from 2010 and 2015. Now, typically we put a 5-year lifespan on that type of equipment, skid steers and forklifts. These particular forklifts are in pretty good shape. It's just we're pushing that capacity, that lift capacity, that we're going to have to get newer, larger forklifts. So we put an RFB out to 4 local vendors, and on the Vermont business website, we received 3 bids back from Crown Lift Trucks out of Williston, Lift Tech out of South Burlington, and Northern Lift Trucks out of Burlington. And the following prices with trade-in came in that Lift Tech was the least expensive of the 3, and Northern Lift Trucks was the next one in line. Now, we've historically always gone with Toyotas. We were able to demo a Toyota at our site to make sure it fit. The representative from Lift Tech actually was out on vacation when we sent this bid out, so they weren't able to get a demonstration vehicle into our facility because we've got some pretty significant space constraints. We've got some pretty tight nooks and crannies that we have to get these things into to move some certain things around. So with that, what we wound up doing was we evaluated each of the bids that came in on delivery schedule, quality of service, equipment service, and bid costs. And really the Lift Tech and the Northern Lift Trucks both met all criteria, with Lift Tech being the lower of all the bids. What I'm proposing, and Sarah, if you scroll down a little farther to the bold, what I'm really proposing is I'd like to give Lift Tech a chance to get a demonstration forklift in to see if it fits into our facility and works properly. And if that's the case, then I'd like the board to authorize the executive director to purchase those 2 in the event that their demo doesn't fit, because there was one thing that didn't meet spec. Then I would like to have the executive director the authority to purchase the Toyotas out of Burlington. So that's really the concept behind this. This was supposed to be done in FY20, but we had a couple things take up a little bit of time.
Just a few things.
Yeah, just a few. So this one kind of fell on the back burner. But we would like to, act on this now. That's why it's at the full board, because I couldn't get the bids out in time to get it to the exec board, because it is, in the preview of the exec board spending.
Right.
But I'd like to kind of take this approach. I'm going to give Lift Tech a week to get a demonstration vehicle in. And if it's in and works, then I'd like to purchase 2 of them. We've allocated $65,000 for rolling stock at the MRF in that budget, and both expenses, either the Lift Tech or Northern Toyota Lift, they both fall under that amount.
Any questions? Yeah, Lee, go ahead.
What spec did was it Lift Tech?
It was Lift Tech. The mast height of the forklift, they're 3-tier forklifts. was 1.5 inches higher than the spec I had requested, though I was conservative in that spec. So I wanted to make sure we had absolute height room. So what we want to do is make sure that it fits underneath a couple conveyors as it moves through the facility. Also, another concern that the operators have is the Toyotas do a really good job of concealing or kind of protecting their hydraulic lines. And if there's a bunch of hydraulic lines hanging out all over the place on this particular piece of equipment, then we're probably not going to go with it either, because there's a lot of areas that it can get snagged and really knock one of these things out of service. You know,
So with that height requirement, do these machines ever, run over product that's on the floor that might, now that the floor is always relatively clean underneath them?
when they make their passes under the really tight areas, they typically go through with a skid steer and move everything out of the way.
Yeah.
Because these things don't really have much suspension because they're running on, concrete floor. But yeah, and the real concern is I want to look at one of these. I've gotten a great feel in the sense that they are very present in this area. There's about 30 of these in Plattsburgh and about 30 of these lift trucks in Ticonderoga. So they've got a strong service presence, which is great. I just have never seen one. So I want to get it in and take a look and see, are we really getting $7,000 less of a piece of equipment, or is it just a good piece of equipment that's cheaper? And the bid
their
process.
level of service for repairs or anything like that is good. I mean,
It's out of, yep. As I understand, it's out of South Burlington. They've got 10 trained techs, and they run out of South Burlington to service both the 30 trucks in Plattsburgh and the 30 trucks in Ticonderoga, and they carry a ton of equipment and parts in that particular area in South Burlington. So that's good.
so if you were to have one of these forklifts go down, you can operate with just one?
Yeah, and we do have a backup. Casella owns a backup, and they keep that on site in the event one goes down, because we can't not move bales. It's a heartbeat of the entire facility. So we do have a backup if one goes down. It's just we don't want that backup in use more than a day or two, depending on how severe the maintenance requirements are.
I have one more question, and then I'll be done. And it's kind of a two-part question. So it's internal combustion. Is it diesel? Is it propane?
Propane.
And the second part of this question, have you ever entertained alternative fuels like an electric, fully electric? I know because we're buying one down at the city.
Oh, are you?
Yes,
We
from
didn't.
Northern Lift.
Are you? I would be interested in that. We didn't look at it in this particular round because I didn't know those were available.
Because I do know there's incentives. I mean, obviously we're in Burlington, so we get incentives from Burlington Electric, but I do know that the state, I believe, provides incentives for from all that Volkswagen money that they got for, I know it's for school buses, like ferries and anything that has to do with transportation, which I believe this would fall under.
Interesting. No, I did not know that.
And I'm done. No more questions from me. Thank you.
Perry, do you have any additional information to offer on what what the total expense of alternative fuel or electric fuel or electric charged forklift would be without an incentive?
Yeah, I could get you my price because we just got approved by city council to purchase one. If you give me a quick second, I can find it. If anybody else has any questions, I'll grab that.
Josh, I was wondering if there was something like a warranty on equipment like this.
Yes. It's what is it? I just looked at it. It's a 1 year, 10,000 hour full basic package, and then a 3-year, I think it's 25,000 hour powertrain package on it. And Casella, their maintenance department is in charge of all the maintenance on it. So typically at the MRF, if we want to go with a longer term warranty, Casella would put the money up for it, as what's happened historically. It's about $1,500 extra each truck for a 5-year warranty.
So is that added on to the expense that you're requesting approval for?
So the standard package, the first one I said, that's part of this cost right here.
Okay.
We didn't put a 5-year warranty on it for this round, just because we have a ton of experience, at least with the Toyotas, and they're really, really good. They go forever. And we've never really had a problem, other than basic service requirements.
And in addition to the considerations, is there like a safety rating that would be something to look into from one manufacturer versus another?
I mean, it's kind of standard, like as far as like the cab protection, kind of the seatbelt requirements. You can't run the machine without your seatbelt on. All that sort of stuff. That's pretty industry standard across the line. A couple of them did have kind of like MRF or like dusty environment specific add-ons, which were pretty expensive. We did ask the ones that did to put those in a line item. But we haven't really had, the operators blow them out in the morning at break and then at the end of the day. So we haven't had a real problem. We've never had a fire concern, with the dust, and it hasn't really gummed them up. And there's a couple schools of, trains of thought on how well those self-protecting and self-blowing kind of pieces of equipment, those add-ons, really how well they work. Some of them actually bog the machines down. So the nice thing is that we're in the bale storage area, so it's not quite as dusty. The one forklift that comes from the baler to the bale storage area does receive more dust, but it's not like our skid steers or our loader.
Okay. Perry, any luck?
Yep. So we're paying, and I'm not sure if it's apples to apples because I'm not sure what size forklift ours is compared to yours, but with incentives, it's a little over $30,000.
Yeah, I guess, for me, the question would be what's the lifting capacity?
Well, we're lifting hydrants, pallets of hydrants and water fittings with it up into the mezzanine, which is, I'm going to say, probably 15 feet up. So, those are all ductile iron, cast iron parts.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get, these are specifically rated to lift 6,000 pounds.
6,000, yeah. I mean, I could get that.
Yeah, that's
fleet manager get me that spec tomorrow.
Great. No, I'd love to look it over.
So I don't know. I would propose to entertain an adjustment to the language you have here, Josh. If there aren't any other items for discussion, questions. I would just propose tweaking the language to saying, supporting purchasing of forklift that meets the specs that are within the scope and parameters, and not to exceed that second highest amount from Northern Toyota, so that perhaps you can have flexibility to look into whether or not a forklift with use of alternative fuels or that it's electric with incentives could come in a lower rate, just to give you a little bit more flexibility.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, yeah, the lead times are about the same on both of these, so that would be, that would work in great if we could add that language. That would give me the flexibility to price out an electric from those two companies.
Okay. Any magic on that, Sarah, for tweaking?
So let's see, because we're going to have to go back out to, I think we would need to go back out to each of the potential bidders and reopen that. But we can tell them that we have a not to exceed purchase price of, and I would just round it to 60,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lee, go ahead.
I believe you're going to have trouble finding other dealers who deal with fully electric forklifts. I believe we only had 2 prospective bidders, and one was out of Colorado, who was significantly cheaper, but we went with Northern Lift because they're right next door to us, and they've always been good to us. They've always given us replacement forklifts, if ours go down. So that's why we justified going with a higher bidder. I'm sure the technology is going to be there, in another couple of years. I'm starting to see more and more come out, technology. So
So the,
I don't
my.
I don't know if we want to go through that process right now, or if we want to entertain it on maybe the next round of purchases to include that in there. I don't think it's going to be able to be apples to apples with the 3 or 4 bidders they got.
Right, and that's what I was going to add, was that this is a change in spec. So in fairness to bidders known and unknown, we would want to issue a new request, which we could do. So we could, it could be tweaked to say that, we could be given a not to exceed purchase amount of $60,000, and then we could go out to bid with these new specifications. If there are either no bidders or they exceed that, we would want authorization to purchase the ones that we've already received the bids from.
Okay, so
Lee, are there some facility costs associated with the electric ones where we'd have to change some?
No, I don't believe there's any charging stations or anything like that, because we don't have any, down at our facility, equipment maintenance. It's just plug in. Yeah, I'd almost do it as like 2 separate RFPs.
Yeah.
Give us a price on a propane one and give us a price on the electric.
Right.
And see who comes in where, and if they're significantly close between the two, then make a decision.
Right, and then that was why I was suggesting that we send out a set, because we already have this one.
Yeah, this one's done.
This one's done. Send out one for the alternative fuel or electric, and then we'd have the 2 to compare, and then we would be able to come back to the executive board at that point, and you could authorize the purchase, or this board can give us the authorization to spend, a not to exceed amount, and then leave it to staff to execute the contract. Those 2 options.
And just, not to overstep my bounds, but this was an FY20 purchase on capital. So I know that it's on staff because we're getting it to you now, but it would be, I'm sure Nola's listening to this and wondering when we're going to close the capital for FY20.
So I would propose that we essentially cap it at 60,000 and offer the opportunity for staff to explore if they want to go out for an RFP for alternative fuel and see if there's incentives. And I'm confident with the staff in making a selection with the equipment that's appropriate for the needs and meets our parameters. Is there any concern to moving forward with that from the commissioners? Okay. All right. So I'm just gonna try and do the language, Sarah. So feel free to help me where I trip up. So be it resolved, the Board of Commissioners authorize the Executive Director to purchase 2 forklift trucks pending an on-site demonstration of equipment not to exceed $60,000. $60,000. And explore the ability to purchase forklifts that are alternative fuel or electric, in addition to the bids already received, and as well not to exceed $60,000. Is that all right, Josh? You want to correct anything there?
No, that sounds good to me.
Do you want to throw anything in about exploring incentives in that, or no?
I think that'll be the part of that, when I go back out to really include any and all incentives to see what's out there.
Right. Do we have a motion?
Make motion.
Second?
Richmond.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any oppose? Any abstain? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, Josh. Sarah, I believe we are on to dock pricing.
Mhm. Let me bring up the packet. Okay. Do you want to talk about the board? So we had that item number 9 is 9A and 9B. So 9A was the facility status update. I don't know if anyone had any questions on that before we go on to 9B.
Yeah, I believe we can move to 9B, given it's an action item.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to bring up my 9B. So this is also unusual in that generally the board does not get involved in pricing details. It was something that was delegated years ago to the general manager / executive director to make the pricing determinations and to inform the board. However, this is a little bit different. And so I wanted to make sure that everyone had a sense for the thought behind where we are and what we are proposing. So as everyone I'm sure remembers, back when in March, when we closed down the system to do our deep clean and to reconfigure for COVID safety protections, one of the items that was at that time a huge concern was handling cash. So it was a concern for the public, for our operators, and we moved to a flat fee system of round numbers. At that time, it was $10 or $20. And we are continuing to have that in place right now, and we added a $5 as well. So right now, the flat fees are you pay $5 for 1 to 2 bags, $10 for up to 4 bags, and $20 up to 8 bags. And our customers liked the simplicity. Our operators liked how quickly and efficiently it helped to move folks through, and it was easy to communicate. It was not ever designed to be a permanent pricing. It was always designed to be temporary. And in fact, in my budget presentations to our member towns, I did make sure to specify that we would be looking at this pricing system in this first quarter and evaluating when we would return to per bag pricing. So that's what we have for you today, is an explanation of why we feel the time is right now and what we're proposing. So in the memo, I wanted to make sure that everyone had a sense, because it was a while ago, of what the pre-COVID pricing was. And we've always used kind of an odd, or for a long time used an odd small bag gallon price. And we had priced our smallest bag at, or the $2.75 bag at 18 gallons. And there isn't an 18-gallon bag that is readily available. Most people will bring us a 13-gallon kitchen bag and then maybe a half of one and say, well, this one's full, but this one's half. Does that kind of add up to 18-ish gallons? And most of the times our operators are so great and customer focused that they would say, yeah, that's fine, and would charge the $275 fee for 18 gallons. So one of my goals when I came on board here was always to get to something that's more practical, that is more best practices and easy to explain. So it's long been difficult to figure out the gallon and have folks do the math and have people argue. We said, you know what, this is a good time to go do the standard kitchen bag size, which is 13 gallons. So when we were doing out the math on the per gallon pricing, that then put us in conflict with our pay-as-you-throw goals. And it is a mandate by the state to have that all solid waste management entities must have some kind of a pay-as-you-throw system. It does not tell you what that needs to be. But where we have generally used as our pay-as-you-throw sensitivity test has been the price per gallon on the bags. So in the memo, I do let you know kind of what that breakdown is of customer usage on the bags. The smallest bags is about 36% of our customers. 54% of our customers use that medium size, which is anywhere from 33 to 35 gallons. 9% use the largest 44 or 45 gallon bag, which is usually a contractor size bag. And then we do have a cubic yard fee as well for people just bringing loose loads. Very, very few people would use that, about 1%. So when we looked at, again, keeping in mind that we want to continue to reduce the need to make change via coins, to handle coins, and to be able to have people continue to move through efficiently, and to reduce that time at the booth, and to reduce the need for our operators to have to guess and estimate. So that now is the time we felt to go to a true small, medium, large per bag situation. So that's what you see on the second page of the memo 9B is the thought was, well, we can round up or we can round down and to hold numbers, so getting to whole dollars. And when we did that, we saw that going down to the standard 13 gallon bag, rounding up, if we were at 275 rounding up, that then really made it very expensive per gallon for our customers to use that small bag. Rounding down, it kept the per gallon price at the same price as it was prior. So by using 18 gallons as the measure. So the rounding down makes the small bag is essentially the same cost per gallon. And you can see though, on that second page, that first chart in the second page, where one swing in one direction, one swing in the other direction was wildly different, the over the under budget. So that's
Sarah,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Go right ahead.
Were you intending to share your screen?
I can, yes, for certain. I don't know if folks had it up. Let me share it right now.
If it won't crash your computer, that is.
Well, not guaranteed, but we'll keep going as long as we can. So this is what I was talking with the getting to the reality of the real actual kitchen bag, which is 13 gallons. So I'll bring up here was the original under the 18 gallon. So this was pre-COVID, what we were charging up until March 23rd. And then this would be the rounding up or the rounding down. So the recommendation would be to do both. Because again, as a municipality, our goal is not to make a profit, it is to break even, cover our costs and get to zero. So in getting to zero, this gets us closer there. And it is unusual that we would drop a fee. But again, if you're looking at the price per gallon, it is the same. We also rounded the gallon size in the middle up to 35. And then again, the rationale being that you can find 33, 34, and 35 gallon bags in any grocery store, Home Depot, et cetera. And then up to a 45 gallon bag, you can find a 44, 45, sometimes a 46, and rounding that up. So this brought us to a slightly over our bag budget. And again, this is presuming everyone behaves the same way, which is a guess, to $45,000 over our estimated revenue on the dock bag budget. So that was where, again, I thought, well, a way to even that out and to also, kind of a nod towards what were some of the pain points for some of our customers. And it was painful for some of our customers when we implemented the recycling only fee. It's only $2 per load, but for some, it really went against, in their minds and in their hearts, against our mission. To say, you want to incentivize recycling and now you're charging me for it. They understood when we explained that there's our costs involved with everything we do, and they got that, but they felt it was a pain point. So we are charging, we're going to be charging $1 for food scraps, basically $1 a bucket up to 5 gallons. This dollar for recycling only loads would also be easier to communicate to the public. It makes it even for those two, and it's just for recycling only loads and for food scrap only loads. If you're bringing in your food scraps and you're recycling with your trash, those fees are incorporated into the trash fees. They're already part of that cost estimate. So I bring this to you because, again, it's a change in going down versus going up. The increase on the 35 gallon, the middle piece, is sizable. It's larger than we normally would increase. It's a 75-cent hike. The thought also, though, is that we want to incentivize folks to reduce their trash. So this could be seen as a way to really encourage people to take that recycling out as much as possible, to remove all the food scraps, maybe to consolidate their trips as well, which are all behaviors we want to continue to encourage. So, Brent, I think I would leave that there and ask if there are questions.
Any concerns, questions for Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, a question. I just want to underscore that, or make sure I understand. You're talking about these differences in revenue relative to the budget, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I mean, I understand your point, Sarah, where you're saying that we're supposed to break even, but we're supposed to break even at the district level. We're not held accountable to go ahead and break even at the
program level.
At the program level, because if we were held accountable to break even at the program level, these rates would be going through the roof at the drop-off center. So I think we're sort of mixing apples and oranges here when we're talking about not raising our rates, right? Because if we fully loaded up the cost of the drop-off center, we know that we're subsidizing the drop-off centers very heavily. Does anybody disagree with that?
I think that, well, I'll wait for others.
I mean, we did a lot of work on the budget to show where, where things were and what was getting subsidized with solid waste management fees. And obviously those numbers change based upon how we want to go ahead and allocate overhead. But I think we all know that we are subsidizing our drop-off centers very heavily. So I think that I would argue that, being ahead of, leaning towards being ahead of budget would be where we want to end up. And that's, if we want to provide a disincentive for people to reduce their trash, you raise the cost of the trash. You don't lower the cost.
Well, we are raising the cost on the 35 gallon and the 45 gallon and on the loose cubic yard going up to 42. So on the sector that is most heavily at the moment used, the middle, that is the largest increase that we're proposing.
Yeah, I don't have a fundamental problem with the fee structure that you're adding. I want to point out that I disagree with that logic where we're talking about trying to go ahead and break even at the level, because I think we're being disingenuous, maybe. We're not breaking the program.
Paul, you had a comment?
Yeah, that's a comment. It's, again, just history being one of the guys on the board. Long time ago, the board was, of mind that we did not want to compete unfairly with commercial haulers, or anybody private sector that would offer similar services. And so we were trying to structure fees and such that it would pay for only those services that that would be in competition with the private sector. So the collection of trash at our drop-off centers being potentially one of those. And we were trying to price things such that we could show we were not unfairly subsidizing that particular program. I realize that's a hard thing to do given our complex structure, but I thought I'd just mention that was at one point a consideration of the board.
Yes, and I think if all things were to remain equal, say people did not change their behavior, and a family brings in 2 35-gallon bags or 3 35-gallon bags every other week, you do the math, they're getting close to curbside service. There's still some incentive built in because they're doing the transportation themselves. So there is, that convenience fee essentially that is built into curbside service. So we are asking people if they're going to be using our facilities to take that cost on themselves. So one thing I want to mention too is when we were looking at the rounding up, it seemed like it was not the right time to do that. A lot of folks are hurting right now due to COVID, and it seemed like it was something small that we could do, again, in right sizing the bags and being transparent, honestly, and honest about the bags to say, this is the cost. We're not losing any money on the 13-gallon bag because now we're actually charging the right price, I think, per gallon. So to go up just because we're going up everywhere else, it seemed like it would be a slap in the face. It's just my personal opinion. I'm not married to the reducing the fee on the recycling only loads. If we want to continue to maintain that, that does have a cost to us, and it does. Moving that material to our MRF. People who use the recycling only. There's not that many customers, frankly. The overall budget item for the drop-off centers on the recycling only fee was only $80,000. So it's not a significant number of customers who use that, and they have paid the $2.
I do have, I'm okay with the proposal of lowering the 13-gallon and adjusting based on the size of bags that are most commonly purchased, as well as adjusting the fees per the hybrid approach that you recommended. I do have concerns about adjusting the recycling fee, as that may present contamination issues by folks wanting to do some more aspirational recycling than they're already doing, and expenses related to contamination and potential operational issues at the facility and users. I mean, you guys know that better than anybody else. So I would worry about that and just the behavioral elements of folks thinking that they can recycle more. It's because it's only $1 and doesn't everything go in. So I'd be concerned about our MRF operations, contamination, expenses, our end markets, our education outreach, what have you.
Understood. And keep in mind, these are for recycling only loads. So this would be kind of extra stuff.
Yeah.
So we see it when there's a clean out, when maybe people get a new refrigerator or a new appliance that comes in a big, huge box and it won't fit in their cart. So they might drop it off and pay the $2. So it tends to be those oversized items. And again, it's not very many customers. So like I said, I'm not married to lowering that one. And for your reasons as well. I think we can keep it at $2.
Yeah, I'm comfortable. Sorry, Jeremy, why don't you go ahead?
I think you mentioned this earlier, but is the movement to go to full dollar increments, that's to minimize the amount of change that's being handled and all that, but that's also happening in tandem with the acceptance of credit cards?
So we won't be able to accept credit cards at all of our facilities at this time because exactly, if we were able to take credit cards, I fully expect 70 to 75% of our customers minimum would use credit cards. And then there's no need to change, right? It doesn't matter. You could charge $2.23. So
Do
yeah.
fractions of cents.
Correct. So that's right. So we are launching credit cards at Heinsberg. Josh, help me. I'm not sure when that is coming online. Before the end of this year for sure. I want to say it's within the next month or so. So that'll be our test run for the credit cards. They'll still have these, obviously the same pricing. If we're able to roll them out to all of the sites by the next fiscal year, which is the goal, then that combined with the modeling that we'll be hearing more from Nancy and John about at next month's meeting, this modeling project that we're working on, we'll be able to get a much better handle, to Tim's point, on the exact, or as close to possible, exactly what it does cost us per bag or per gallon or per pound, however we put those numbers into that model. And then with credit cards, it doesn't matter, right? You charge,
be much more flexible.
Absolutely. And that's another year from now. So the issues around coins may prove out and to not be an issue. But for right now, where there's still a bit of uncertainty around that. And again, this is efficiency too. You know, it's a lot easier to hand over. I've got this, and this adds up to $10. Here you go. It's much quicker.
Great, thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Yeah, I've got one more question. Sarah, you say that the flat fee system does not fulfill the state mandate for a pay-as-you-throw system.
It does at a minimum. It's the bare minimum for fulfilling, because you're charging more for more items. But because it's essentially the same amount per unit, it's not an incentive to waste less. Whereas and that's what I've had a kind of a love-hate relationship with the price per gallon, but I do like it for that reason, that you can show, all right, if I'm gonna use a 45-gallon bag, I'm paying 18 cents per gallon versus reducing as much as I can to get my trash into a 13-gallon, I'm gonna pay 15 cents per gallon. So it's pretty much the bare minimum. The state does not say how you must do this, just that you have to have some kind of a pay-as-you-throw, a variable rates, a rate-based system.
Okay. In other words, it does meet the state requirement.
It does, yeah. I was maybe being a bit too.
I was going to say there's no difference between if this doesn't meet the pay-as-you-throw system, then none of the haulers feed it.
Well, right.
I just want to be clear.
Yeah, it's a conversation for another day.
So how are commissioners feeling about the proposal to adjust the bag sizes and fees and keep the recycling fee, the recycling only fee the same?
When you say you charge charging $1 for recycling, how much recycling are they bringing in? What are they actually getting charged for? Do they have a bin? Are they bringing it in a bag?
It varies. It can be some loose pieces with some other, if somebody brings in, say they've got, a broken chair, and then they happen to have a couple of big sheets of cardboard. They, might be charged for the chair, and then, $2 for the cardboard. It's all loose. It's not in bags, so we don't want any recycling in bags. So it's really loose stuff, and it's not much.
So I'm just trying to visualize. I know what I have every week. I can, on a good day when the UPS truck is stopping every other day out front, I can fill a 95-gallon cart pretty easy.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're bringing trash with that, then there is no charge. You know, so if you've got a bag of trash as well, and you've got your 95-gallon cart of great recycling, we're not charging you additionally for that cart of recycling. That fee is built into your bag price.
Yeah. Because I know the tonnages were what, like for 2019 in Burlington was 177 tons of recycling.
Right.
It's,
But that wasn't all loose.
no.
That was combined with people bringing in trash as well.
So I think I would probably feel most comfortable with just changing the MSW fees for now and leaving the recycling only fee as is, and keeping an eye on complaints that come in and calls, and seeing the volume frequency of that. Because I can also see complaints saying, well, a bag of recycling is the same as trash, and having some complaints related to that. But I do want to keep in mind the overhead and the transportation and the amount of contamination that could happen if folks thinking they're getting a deal with recycling, and we see a higher amount of contamination as a result. And I just want to be very careful and very mindful of that.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to read the motion then. Be it resolved, the Chittenden Solid Waste District Board of Commissioners supports the recommendation made by the Executive Director to alter the FY21 budgeted revenue expectations for DOC tipping fees so that the overall budget remains unaffected. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I so move it, South Burlington.
Second from Richmond.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right.
Thank you.
So we do have one more item on the agenda this evening. It's the most fun. We anticipate NOLA being very happy to finally present on these items she's been working very, very hard on for the last couple months. I do want to give an opportunity to summarize some of the content and reassure the full board that both the financial committee as well as the executive committee has reviewed the packet of the policies in particular and the changes related to them. So to the extent that there is specific things that folks have questions about that may help get through this faster, I believe that it is imperative to adopt these policies from what NOLA has expressed and Sarah's expressed. So I do want to hang on to get through this, and I apologize, it's a long evening. NOLA, go ahead, take it away.
Okay, so all of these financial policies were created prior to my start. I just had to find them all, which was a bit of a task in and of itself. I just made a few minor adjustments to be sure that we had uniform formatting. I removed any specific language regarding accounting software. It referenced Great Plains quite a few times. We no longer use that software, and I wanted it to be more universal. I may have made a couple of additional adjustments just to be sure that all of the policies were broad and fairly timeless, because that is the point of a financial policy. I expanded the comprehensive internal controls. We didn't really have a whole lot of detail regarding internal controls, so I added in basically what you would find in any government accounting standards board book. I did provide some additional language regarding the transfer of authority for the executive director as authorized by the board. And I included the uncollectible accounts statement. We do have an uncollectible accounts. We have processed bad debt in the past, but we had no policy as to how we should really be preparing those adjustments. So I made sure to add in some additional information for that. And I did increase the value of capitalization. It was the very minimum amount of $5,000 that GASB requires or at least suggests. And I moved that up to 25,000. If you want some more detail on that, I'm happy to explain it. But basically, it would allow us to eliminate about 200 assets that are sitting on the books. We would still be cataloging those. So it's not like we would lose, the detail of where that those property and equipment items were. We would still be tracking them to be sure that, we had control over them, but we wouldn't be depreciating them, because that's really the difference between a capital asset and a property and equipment expense. I also included what is considered the committed reserves. So that's primarily the encumbrance values. So Josh referenced the capital assets that haven't been able to be processed yet. So we could include those in the appropriate fiscal year without having to come to the board to allow us to increase our capital expenses for the next fiscal year. Those are really the primary changes that I made. Everything else is pretty much the same as it was before. I didn't touch the investment policy at all, but I do know that the Finance Committee did ask that we kind of hold that for a later date, just in case they had modifications to that policy.
Any questions from the commissioners? All right. Again, NOLA has done a pretty outstanding job pulling all these piecemeal policies together, getting them in one place, and organizing them very nicely, and kind of scrutinizing the details to update them for us. So many thanks to you, NOLA, for the hard work related to that. Barring no other discussion or questions, I will read the proposal. Be resolved that the Board of Commissioners approves the compilation and updates to the CSWD financial policies.
Essex, so move.
Burlington, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Thank you so much. Given that there were two other items on financials, are there any questions or discussion on that content as well? Okay.
I do want to mention that the financials that you received are not just unaudited, but they're also unallocated at this time. So you may see that there are some zero values in there. It's just because we haven't had an opportunity to allocate those expenses for like the management fee that covers some of the negative values that you'd find in the other programs.